So I want to welcome everyone to episode 5 on our journey of really helping all of us to navigate through any form of trauma. And so this is called trust after trauma. And I talk about it all the time, building our trust muscle, and really how many different areas of our life are affected by distrust or experiences that happen, whether they're in relationships or in the workplace or, in our community, and just different ways that we're going to be able to build those trust muscles together so that we can really feel as if we're feeling even more energized, even calming our nervous system as we're going through specific things in our lives. So, my name is Janet Grace. I'm a spiritual life coach, and I'm also the founder of a nonprofit called Grace's Place Foundation. And our mission is to really end generational trauma and provide education and support for women and children to really create hope for their future, filled with joy and promise and free of abuse. And so we're really dedicated to coming to the surface of how it is that we can create a future free of abuse for our children, for our grandchildren. So we've got a big mission, and we're all in this together. And We the World has a beautiful spokeswoman here with us today. And this is Angel Short. I want to welcome you, Angel. I'm so excited to be on this conversation in this podcast today. And I just want to share with you a little bit about Angel. She's the executive director of We the World, a New York City-based nonprofit dedicated to accelerating global social change through collaboration and compassionate action. With a background in nonprofit leadership and a passion for empowering change makers, Angel unites diverse voices around campaigns for peace, justice, and sustainability. A longtime advocate for trauma recovery, Angel previously served as a victim advocate for Hope's Wings domestic violence program and draws on lived experience from a 20-year relationship involving many forms of abuse. So I want to welcome you, Angel, to this conversation today. I'm so excited to have your experience, your wisdom, your passion for service here on this podcast, and really sharing from your heart so many different aspects of how you've navigated through some really traumatic experiences in your own life. So thank you, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, yay. So we're choosing a topic every week, and we're calling it Freedom Friday. So every Friday, a new podcast, a new episode will be launched. And today, the topic that we chose is called Navigating Trust Issues in the Team Dynamics. And because Angel has so many experiences in team building and team collaboration, we're also going to be talking about strategies for overcoming trust barriers, because we know we're always working with different personality types, and how do you navigate through those, and really foster collaborative working environments, and really bringing relationships and personality types together. So what can you share with us why this particular topic was something that you wanted to have a conversation about?
Oh, absolutely. So, in my work with We the World, we are a global organization. So, we have team members from all over the globe, which means, we're dealing with, cultural differences and time zone differences, and we're all working remotely. Like, there's so many different dynamics that go into working with, you know, teams in general. And then you
Mhm.
add in all those other factors, and yeah. you can have some very interesting things happening going on there. And then when you come from a background of abuse, which is, really prevalent,
Mhm.
everywhere around the world, trying to navigate that, the personal stuff that you have going on, along with the professional team dynamic stuff that you have to
Mhm.
deal with, especially when you're in a leadership role, it can get really sticky and tricky. And yeah, I think it's a very, very important topic, that many people need to be aware of. It's not this or that. It's,
Right.
both things. We're a whole human being. And we need to bring that into our work. Um,
Yes.
and hopefully we can help out with some of that stuff today.
Yes, absolutely. And you brought up a really good point. We're whole people. And so it's not like, oh, I can, like healthily leave my personal life at home and then show up at work, this unaffected person, when there's things that are triggered, and we could talk about triggers today too, uh, that that really affect how we perform in a team setting, or even how we perform in the aspect of what your tasks are within the team, because we know, just like a dominoes, when one person who's supposed to have provided this, it doesn't show up on time, and that doesn't meet the deadline, then the dominoes fall apart. And how you handle that, as again, through conversations. I like to call them conscious conversations, because you want to deal with the whole person. Is there something that we can support you with? Yeah. Yeah. Is there something in particular, or um uh let's say, even when you're getting together with a team, and you want to honor each person that is showing up, and you can also, even, what I like to call it, a silent prayer. If you happen to know something personal about that person, let's say they're going through a domestic, situation, or they're going through a divorce, or they're going through the loss of a child, and they're showing up to work because they have to, because they still have to provide for their family, and knowing something personal about their life, to honor their privacy, but maybe sending out a silent prayer. Is there anything in particular, like a story or a situation that um might be helpful to our audience today, that you can share?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I have many, many stories, just from my
Yeah.
own journey, and, trying to do the work that I do. So it became, as I was coming out of my own situation,
Mhm.
the support that I had from my team, the administrative team, the people, the team members that are closest to me, that, knew what was happening. I had to let them know what was going on. Um, their support and their willingness to step up and help me with my job while I was trying to do this and keep the organization running, get myself out of, a dangerous situation, and keep the entire organization running. Like, the support from them, phenomenal. I don't even know where I'd be at today, if I didn't have that support from them. And I think that's always going to be key for anybody in those types of situations, is that support structure is vital, vital. People don't necessarily need to know all the details of what you're dealing with, if you're not comfortable sharing that, but certainly in your workplace, there needs to be someone that you can, you know, confide in a little bit and be like, hey, I'm in this situation. Can you help me, support me in my work so that I can get through this other thing that's going on here? Um, I know there's a lot of shame around abuse, being a victim of abuse. And that's another thing that we need to navigate our way out of, um,
Yes.
and not feel, guilty about asking for that help. I can go down a whole rabbit hole about all of these things. Absolutely. But yeah, just from my own personal experience, being able to have those conversations and have at least one person that you can trust on your team to
Yeah.
help you and step up and learn to do what you're doing. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not going to call her out by name, but
Mhm.
she
Yeah.
was really a lifesaver during that time. And she herself,
Mhm.
was she had come out of an abusive relationship many years ago, but she didn't have very much confidence in her ability to be able to support me. But mm, we discovered that she's yeah she's a
Yes.
superstar. So
Yes. And, you mentioned several amazing, important aspects of this. And the first one is eliminating shame so that you can be um, authentic. You can ask from a place of genuine need, and and that takes courage. So, building the trust muscle also comes from us being courageous enough to ask for help. And, in generations past, um, the level of shame was so oh, don't talk about anything that's happening. You don't want to scar your family, or you don't want to scar this. But if we're not sharing our truth, then we're buried in it. If we're not sharing, we're buried. And so eliminating shame is so key important. Um and like you said, trusting someone in your company, in your inner circle, someone that you're working with, and say, I really have to talk to you about something that's going on, and I really need to ask for your help. And again, the other thing about asking, I would say, in the 25 years that I've been a spiritual life coach, the number one muscle that most women had to build from, in their work with me, was asking for help. Like, it's it's
I
crazy.
can confirm that. Yeah.
Like,
If it well,
right? It's
just in my own journey, and I went to therapy. I had to do some therapy because the psychological damage is extensive with those situations. But just in asking for help was one of the. I'm 3 years out, and I'm just now what I would call comfortable asking for some help. So it's a practice and it's a process. But what I discovered in my own situation, it was so it's difficult to honor yourself in that way, and to ask for help and honor the fact that even if you can do everything, you don't have to do everything, and to accept the support from other people. It's like an honor to be able to do that for yourself. And when you come from a situation where the person, that should love you the most is not honoring you at all, it's difficult to navigate that mentally and emotionally. Like to
right.
untangle all of that mess that's created and to say, wait a minute, you know, I am worth honoring, even if it's me that has to honor myself, and to say, I really need to take care of myself. And sometimes that means I need to ask for help. So it's a
Yeah.
whole process,
Yeah.
to be able to get through that, not asking for help. And
Hmm.
that for me came about from I couldn't ask for help because I needed to do everything for the relationship, for the house, for like everything was my responsibility. And don't ask for help, because if you ask for help, bad things are going to happen. So that kind of creates those neural pathways in your brain that, you know, cause and effect. And it just kind of it bleeds out into all areas of your life. You become that. And then when you get out of that situation, you really got to take the time to unbecome that.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you're speaking to so many people today, and I know that it's a prevalent, you know, with Grace's Place Foundation, we do a lot of investigating on, understanding the culture right now, and understanding, like, the statistics that really brought us to even creating our nonprofit was that most women, because we started in 2020 when everyone was locked up, right? So
Mhm.
the domestic violence numbers skyrocketed. And what we realized was, there was a statistics that was women go back 8 to 12 times before they finally leave or they're killed. And every 11 minutes, someone is killed in a domestic violence situation. And what you're talking about, asking for help. There's we work in alliance with Doves, our local shelter, but
Mhm.
and that's not what we do. They are triage and we are the what's next. And even getting into the shelters is you have to be courageous and honor yourself enough to ask for the help that's needed. And the children are watching, right? I mean, whether you have biological children or you just live in a neighborhood where there's other children, I always say, energy doesn't have a border. So, um, the neighborhood is aware of what's going on energetically, even within, even, they'll hear loud voices or they'll hear different things, in a household. And again, I'm being led to say, if you do hear those kinds of things happening in your neighborhood, to call 911, to call and ask for help for your neighbor that might not be able to ask for help for herself in that moment. And really, the truth of the matter is we are all in this together. And the more that we can eliminate the shame, really reduce the amount of stigma around it, and ask for the help that we need, and recognize that um, that there is so many people that truly do care and truly do want to help. And sometimes they don't feel as if they want to overstep a boundary because they want to honor your privacy. But when there's something like that that's in, like, in your awareness, please step out and help. Help. I'm sure that you had neighbors and also and coworkers, because today we're kind of talking about, you know how your team came together and how you can come together for your team when there's a situation outside of the workplace that really does affect their performance in the workplace. And yeah, is there anything in particular that's bubbling up for you as I'm sharing right now that you might want to just, expand upon?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I could talk about this all day, because I did work at the local domestic violence shelter, and I had several crisis calls
Mhm.
there. And I also worked in the court system and would represent, or help assist with the victims, during the emergency protective order processes and things like that. But yeah, even in my own experience,
Mhm.
what was evident to me, especially after I came out of my situation, is people aren't really educated about what abuse is. And there's certainly in our workplace, like there's not really like a whole lot of support or guidance to be able to recognize when maybe one of your team members is dealing with a difficult situation at home, because victims, they're trained really well to cover a lot of that stuff up, and some of those signs can be very subtle. um but yeah, even as I was taking crisis calls and things like that, and even in my own situation, there were things that are actually abuse, but we don't see it as abuse. We don't, you know, recognize it as abuse because it's either normal to us or we minimize it and it's not, oh, that's not a big deal. I don't know how many phone calls I had where, oh, he just shoved the back of my head, and I can't really explain why I'm afraid of him, but he hasn't really like hit me or anything, but I'm fearing for my life and I can't explain it to anybody why I'm scared. Well, him shoving you in the back of the head, that's abuse. That's abuse. Many people think that it has to be, oh, he had me down on the ground pounding me, or he was stabbing me with a knife or trying to shoot me or whatever. Like, they believe that it has to be that extreme to be, labeled physical abuse anyway, labeled as physical abuse, and that's not the case. Um,
Right.
even those smaller acts, um, they result. It's psychological abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, creating that fear and intimidation, um, all of that, financial abuse. So I think from, just from my experience, my perspective, and the work that I've done in the field, there definitely needs to be more education. It needs to be more mainstream. What is abuse?
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
people understand that it's not, just somebody beating on you. That's not all that it is. I didn't even recognize that I was being abused until I got into like really researching abuse, and oh, the financial abuse. Yeah, that makes sense. Narcissism. Yeah, I get that. Like
Right.
the emotional abuse. Oh yeah, he did that too. And
Mhm.
I,
Yeah.
I never I never considered myself a victim or someone that was being abused for 20 years.
Right, right. And you bring up such a great point. I mean, we identified about 22 different forms of abuse, but I know that even Grace's Place right now, we're expanding globally. We've done a Freedom Beyond Abuse year-long program that we're now going to condense down into not 12 months, but 12 weeks. And then we'll create another 12-week. But what we're realizing is that like just like you said, people don't identify it or even think, oh, he just talks to me that way. Like
Mhm.
there was one woman, it's like, how do you talk to you that way? And and her answer was, talk to me what way? Like it's so normal for her to just be talked down that she doesn't even think of it as verbal abuse. And it was clearly verbal abuse because my antennae are up. Like I'm like, are you kidding? So and not that, so there's also a stigma around the word abuse, and abuse is really just one person creating a situation or trying to take control over another person in whatever form, like the many that you just mentioned, and the many that we will be discussing in this podcast. uh and really, the autonomy. You know, we are all here. We're all children of God. We were all given the freedom to live our life in the way that, and to love ourselves as God loves us, and to then love our neighbor as ourselves. And, you know, the thing that's so vitally important is, like you were saying, I'm worth it. I'm worthy of feeling good and feeling safe and feeling um uh, as if my life matters, because it does. And so when you say, I've been abused, it's not, you know, uh, not that you want to live in this energy of a victim. It's just when we can just say it as, it's part of my journey, but it's also brought me to who I am today. And that's really another thing about, it's trust after trauma. Like the things that you went through. And I know that some of the stories and the things that you've shared with me have just, been, kind of unbelievable. And yet they've made you, Angel. They've made you who you are today. A strong, powerful, confident, courageous woman who is here to serve and support and uplift others because of the things that you on your journey, any particular tool or practice or something that you do for yourself that has maybe come out of um you know come out of your experience with abuse? Yeah.
Yeah, so the number one thing for me, and especially right after I came out of my situation, and it's still key for me today, is to be as present in the moment as possible. Every moment of every day, like I try to remind myself, get back to here, get here right now. Um, because you got that anxiety and the emotional triggers, and everything is overwhelming if you are thinking about the past and the future, and you're trying to focus on what you got going on the present. It is overwhelming. Um so i th- for me, that's my biggest tool. When I start to feel my energy's off, or something's starting to feel not quite right, I stop
Mhm.
and I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at. I'm here right now. Whatever is coming up next, or whatever I just dealt with, or whatever, like, I don't have to finish processing it right now. What I need to do right now is be right here.
Yeah.
And that was really the thing that got me through my whole situation. And
Mhm.
it was so, and I don't think that I've ever experienced it at that level, being that present, that fully present. Um,
Mhm.
but of course, I was stuck in that, abusive situation where I always had to, on eggshells, always had to be on my toes kind of thing. So I could never really be present with anything that I was doing. I always had to anticipate the next move. But that experience was so freeing to me, to give myself that permission and that space to just let the past go. Don't worry about the future. Like, just be right here, right now, because all that stuff's still going to be there. Um, not necessarily going to go away, but yeah, it's to me, it was like the cure for me. Really a big
Yeah.
part of the cure for me,
Yeah.
because your brain and your emotions and your nervous system, eventually it'll start to regulate itself, like it'll
Mhm.
calm down and things will settle down if you can just get through this moment.
Right. Right. And um yoga and the breath has been a really powerful tool for me too, because one of my yoga teachers would say you can't breathe in the past and you can't breathe in the future. You can only breathe right here. You can only breathe in the present moment. The breath is like it takes you right back to right here, right now. And yeah, it's a constant reminder,
Mhm. Yep.
because especially in this world where everything feels like it's accelerating. And I know that overwhelm, you mentioned overwhelm. We're all just trying to do so many things and navigate through, and get this done and do this and take care of this, and you know and when we can take ourselves right back to this moment, um and even for those, again, it's not like you can erase what happened, but if you can have a place for it, and it's here, it's in the past, and yet there could be triggers. And like you said, you don't need to process it in this moment. If something triggered you, a memory showed up, somebody made a phone call or a comment, and you're like, like all of a sudden you can feel the energy, right? And you're like, wait, I'm just gonna breathe, because it's not happening right now, and that, but it did trigger something.
For me,
So,
that was imperative. It really was, for it,
oh,
very imperative for me to do that, because when I was triggered by something, at work, like, to the, normal person or whatever, it wasn't a big deal. And it really wasn't a big deal to me either, but it triggered something inside me. So I had to be like, okay, I got to set this down for a minute. Let me do my job, and I'll come back to that later. And that's what I would do. After I was done working, I would go back and I would replay that and be like, okay, where is that coming from? You have to really take the time to unravel all of
yes.
that mess that was created, from the situation that you were in. And I think it's, just back to the team dynamics thing in the workplace. I think it's, very important for us to create safe, supportive spaces for people to be able to, you know, come to leadership and be like, hey, I got this thing going on, or really, you know, I got to deal with it, or whatever it needs to be, or I need to talk to you in depth about what's going on, or I need support in this way, like just to create that environment. And like even with my own team, you're going to have conflict in the workplace about normal how we should do things this way or that way, normal team conflict dynamics stuff.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
my whole team knows if they've got something personal going on, that they're safe to they don't have to share, but they can absolutely say, I need to step away for a minute. I've got some things that I got to deal with, and it's
Yeah,
not a big deal.
yeah. And going back to that, mentioning the trust muscle, to trust that they're in a safe environment,
Hmm.
to trust the leadership enough to say, I've got something to deal with. And, and it can't be postponed right now. I need to, and to be able to trust enough to
Yep.
ask for that time for yourself, to trust enough in your team and your leadership to be able to take care of the things that you need to take care of. Because, as we all know, in working with any kind of team, that, when everyone's, on their best, on their highest ground, well, even in this co-creation, with We the World, in bringing this podcast to the world, we're joining genius, as Barbara Marx Hubbard loves to say,
Hmm.
and she was one of my last mentors. And I just, it's like, what's your genius? What's your genius? What's your genius? And then trusting your other team members that they're in their genius. And so then everybody, you rise together when you can recognize what, not only what your genius is, but what each other's genius. And if one person's feeling off, to be able to trust and say, you know what, I need a little more time, or I need to, step away. Being the executive director of We the World, how can we stay in touch with you and with We the World, and to know everything else that you guys are up to? Because you're up to a lot of amazing things. Yeah.
Yeah, this would be even longer if I sit here and talk about everything that we're doing. So the easiest way is to go to we.net, we.net, and you'll see most things over there, or find us on social media, the We Campaign, and
Mhm.
you'll see a lot of what we're doing. So yeah, we have a lot of good stuff rolling out this year. I'm really
Mhm.
excited about it. We're taking on another student team from NYU. I think we're sending in our proposal. So in the fall, we'll be working with NYU, New York University. Um, so yeah, we got some
Yeah.
exciting things coming up.
Yes, so exciting. And I'm so grateful to be partnering with you guys, because it really has been such a beautiful collaboration and co-creation, and bringing everybody together with their unique geniuses, and also having a combined um mission of wanting to serve the universe, serve the world with new ways of being able to be all that we are here to be, and to do what we're here to do, and to give and to have at a higher level, is really what We the World has been demonstrating for 25 years. So we've
Well, we're making a big push now to implement some agile systems and planning and models and stuff like that, because we have a place for everybody. When, whatever it is that you want to do to change the world, I definitely encourage you to connect with us, because we will find you a spot and we will support you in doing that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I'm so excited that we had this time together and sharing your beautiful wisdom and your experience. And I know that there's only more to come. So from my heart to yours, Angel, thank you so much, and have a beautiful and blessed day.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. Thanks for everyone, and stay connected with the Trust After Trauma podcast. Whether you're seeing us on YouTube or Spotify, or any of the other podcast platforms, like us and share us, and let's keep the love going. So thank you for now. Have a beautiful, blessed day. Bye for now.